that's working. Right, that's why I was looking to preview it before it actually happened. Right. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, I think the only thing that I have left to do is, something's not right, because the Zoom, oh, I know what else, because the Zoom computer is not showing on the curve projector, but there was a couple cords unhooked earlier from the laptop, and that maybe I plugged one of them into the wrong place, because they had the three, because the HDMI and the USB with the like the CAN link was unplugged, and it was totally unplugged in general, and so I don't know if I plugged it into the correct place or not, but obviously I did not. Because I don't think it's going into the camera, it's going into the camera switcher properly, but something is not going to the projector right, and I think it has to do with that. Because there was something else unplugged from like the splitter A, probably the HDMI, because there's a HDMI that goes into the laptop, right? Also. From splitter A into the laptop. And that is supposed to go to. It's not showing. This one? Oh, I think it's just. Is it just loose? Why is it not? Oh, there it goes. It's showing up now. Yeah, the HDMI cable is just a little loose. We're good.
Curious.
I know, right?
Curious.
Okay, yeah, I think that's the only thing I need to do is double check that sound is coming through the speaker.
Yeah.
You know. Okay. Yeah, I just need to let this in there. I'm gonna check the sounds. Sorry. So, it's just. Oh, yeah, I mean, it's like the problem is, you know, I have.
You didn't choose cat allergies. You didn't choose your.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, yeah, because I normally bring this to me. A little bit, not too much. But usually, I just open this new link and then some, and then it's asked for somebody like, let's see the meeting.
Carrie, can you hear us? All right, thank you.
I know. Oh, right. Yeah, that's, I think that's good enough. It's not super. It's really tiny. It's just like slightly to the, but that's a, that's a certain.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's right. Yeah. That's better, actually, yeah. That's Sorry, should I have been giving you a heads up like 2 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago? I think so. I know for city council meetings, we'll turn some of them off, but unless there's other requests that I don't know.
We're good to go.
Recording in progress.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Design Review Board, the special board meeting of December 19th. John, could you do a roll call for us?
Sure. Lynn Diedler. Here. Christine Lovell.
Here, my thing's not working,
Yeah,
FYI.
the light doesn't work very good on that one, so it does turn on, but.
Is it on?
Doesn't sound like it.
The microphone is just the light bulb.
Right.
We just discovered that.
Try one more time.
Okay. I'm in some status, now I'm gonna push it. On or off?
I
On?
think that's on. Say it one more time.
On or off here,
That's-
okay.
Chair Lingberg.
Here.
All right. And Vice Chair Melissa Hanley is absent, as well as Carrie Bush, along with Marshall Balfe.
All right, thank you. We have some minutes to approve, but we don't have enough people here who were at that meeting. So we'll pass on that. Any planning department update?
Sure, we've got a few. So the first one is the City Council adopted the objective design standards at the December 5th meeting, so the last meeting. And the next bit of information that I have is the canopy, which is the project at the north end of town off of Gravenstein Highway behind the O'Reilly Media Center, the 80-unit townhome. The public draft EIR, it was released for viewing on December 7th. And the Planning Commission will be having a meeting to go over the environmental questions as part of the 45-day public review period for that. Again, that meeting is scheduled for January 9th, and then public comments for that draft EIR ends January 22nd. So if there are any comments from the public on that project, you can email them to myself or give us a call. We'll make sure those comments are included. Let's see what else. The Woodmark project is still moving forward. Their construction is still happening. Carrie is here. I might have her provide a little bit more detail on that project as she's been working on that one. So I think with that, that's all that I have, and happy to send it over to Carrie.
So for the Woodmark project, yeah, we did have a meeting with them recently to revise their construction access. They are pouring the last of their foundations. They have at least one of the fire sprinklers on site, or the fire hydrants on site, ready to go, which is one of the requirements for vertical construction to start. And so they are anticipating to start vertical construction in January on that project.
All right.
Thank you.
Any update on the Hotel Sebastopol?
Thank you. That's what I was gonna ask.
I mean, I get asked that question once a month at least.
Actually, we did recently, the city did approve a lot line merger that was required by them. So they have submitted both their Caltrans encroachment permit for those improvements, as well as their PG&E power application, and PG&E required them to merge the parking lot and the main site. Because they have PV solar on the parking lot site on carports with electrical that goes under Brown Street to the main site. And so PG&E was requiring a merger for that, and we did just approve that. There's no other updates from them at this time, but obviously that they are still working towards construction in the spring.
Okay. And all their permits, they are still intact. They extend
Yep.
as they need to extend or whatever. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. So now we can take comments from the public on items not on the agenda.
That would be me.
Christine, if you could go to the podium and
I have to go up there, I think, because of the Zoom.
yeah.
Okay, so my purpose here is just to share with my board some documents that relate to things that we've discussed in the past, since I will be leaving the board and I won't be here to follow up. So one of the things I want to say before I start is I'm going to consider the thing to be an ideology until there's actual facts and data to back it up. So the state of California has presented us with an ideology that goes as such. We have a housing crisis, and this housing crisis is a result of lack of units and too much cost. And this can be fixed by high density building in an urban environment. So interestingly enough, this path was started down by Australia and New Zealand 20 years ago. So now we have a study, which I have. This is a legitimate study done with peer review, references, and everything. And so they studied what was the end result of this ideology in producing a reduction in the housing lack of units and a reduction in price. This is produced by Rutledge, Tyler, and Francis Group. It's entitled, "We Zoned for Density and Got Higher House Prices. Supply and Price Effects of Upzoning over 20 years." It's a really interesting study to read. And like I said, it uses facts and data that were produced over a 20-year period. The other thing, I made copies of these, which I'm going to share with the staff and the board. The other thing that I wanted to talk about relates to the RHNA numbers. And as you know, I discussed during the ODS that I studied this document thoroughly. The final regional housing needs allocation and methodology. I was interested to know because I could see that the RHNA numbers are driving the housing allocations and what we're doing and what we're planning. And so I wanted to know how those numbers, where they came from and what those numbers mean and the methodology. Hint, there is no methodology based on facts and data whatsoever. So what I wanted to point out for my town is that Sebastopol is highly targeted for the RENA numbers, and if it were not for that lady over there, who's a hero to me, we would be in a much bigger problem than we are right now. But Sebastopol's in the dark blue region based on this document, which means it's in the area of highest opportunity. And what they do is they divide the whole Bay Area region into low opportunity and high opportunity. And the purpose of this document is to show how we can move people from low opportunity to high opportunity regions. So a woman named Amy Kalich from Mill Valley did a PowerPoint, and I have the PowerPoint document here, where she was discussing how housing laws sabotage affordable unit production and how to calculate the damage. This also is a very, very interesting document because in a way we kind of got lucky with the Woodmark because we got to take all our lower rated RENA numbers and put them on that project. But generally it's done by a 10% inclusion or a 20% inclusion. Well, what Amy does here is she starts taking the RENA numbers. She took actually the Marin County page out of this document, and she went through the RENA numbers using 10% inclusion and 20% inclusion. And the number of actual housing units that you come up with is unbelievable to meet your RENA numbers. And I think this is something that is very much worthy of contemplation. So I have these documents. I'm going to hand them off to you. I did not copy this one. I really recommend, I have the PDF if you guys are at all interested in reading the RENA methodology, how they're going about it and what their plan is. I highly recommend reading it. And I have the PDF. If any of you guys are interested, I can forward it to you.
Thank you very much, Christine. And thanks for...
I'm going to give you, I made copies for everybody. I thought here. I can give you 2. I hope that you will share them with your colleagues.
Sure. Thank you. It's Christmas time. That's great. Thank you for that, Christine, for the documents and for your words. And while we're at it, thank you for all your time on the board and all your effort here over the years. Very much appreciated.
I have offered that if there's a short supply going forward, I'm willing to continue. So.
Okay. And any other comments from the public on items not on the agenda? Anybody on Zoom, or these are applicants on Zoom up there, I guess?
Yes, Lisa is. I'm not sure about Ramon, though.
Okay. All right. Well, moving along. Any statements of conflict of interest from the board? Seeing none, we'll move to our regular agenda. We have one item for a preliminary review for project at 845 Gravenstein Highway North. John, can you give us a staff report on that?
Sure. Thank you. So the city of Sebastopol has received an application from the Society of St. Vincent de Paul for development of a one-story residential housing development at 845 Gravenstein Highway North. The project proposes to create 22 residential, extremely low, which is 30% of the average median income, or AMI, and also includes supportive services for the residents. The site is approximately 0.95 acres that is vacant and previously had the Amerigas store located on it, which has since been demolished. The site is surrounded by commercial uses to the west and north and residential to the northeast. The site directly to the north has both commercial in front and residential behind, and to the east, with the east of and south parcels within this county's jurisdiction with access from Hurlbut Avenue. As far as the zoning consistency goes, the minimum allowed units for this parcel would be 11.49 or 11.5, and the maximum units would be 23.74. The proposed units being 22 is within this maximum and minimum density allowed. To note as well, the site would require 22 parking spaces. And since the project is deed restricted affordable housing, there's a 90%, there's a reduction in parking for 90% of the applicable parking, which equates to 20 parking spaces in total. The site provides 28 parking spaces overall, as well as 20 additional bicycle parking spaces. One of the comments that I did want the board to consider today is the parking layout, as the southeast corner of the lot has two existing heritage oak trees, and the current site plan has parking over in that area that would affect those trees. Since the site is over parked, staff is asking the board to provide a recommendation to the applicant to reshape that parking to either reduce a couple parking spaces in that corner so that the health of those trees can survive. There's also a couple additional property line trees on the adjacent parcel south, which would also be affected by that parking. So that is one of the additional items that we are looking for recommendations on, as well as building design elements, particularly the front facade. As the initial documents that we received from the applicant were lacking a little bit in the front facade. They did supply some additional renderings, which are part of the package, and the applicant also has a model animation that she's going to show as part of the report for them to show kind of the inside pedestrian view of the site, as everything that we have in our packet is just overhead views. So I think with that, I will end my part. I know Carrie's was going to add some additional information as far as the history of this site, as it is currently occupied by the RV Safe Parking Village. So with that, I'll pass it off to Carrie.
Thank you, Sean.
Jim,
So
I just have one quick question. I don't want to lose the train of thought here. With the parking, with the minimum units is 20 or 22. What?
So
when you,
there
when
were,
you do the 90% reduction, what is the minimum number of parking places?
it's 20. So they
20,
would
okay.
with a regular development, it would be 22. But since they are affordable housing, they get that 90%
Okay.
of whatever the applicable parking is. So it jumps it down to 20 parking spaces.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So just a little bit of project background, and I know some of you longer standing board members may be familiar that in 2016, Kevin Kellogg had an application before the board to do a mixed use project. It was about 11,000 square foot commercial on the first floor and 11 apartments above. That project has since expired. However, and that was when the AmeriGas station was there. The St. Vincent de Paul purchased the property a couple of years ago in anticipation of doing an affordable project, affordable housing project such as this on the site. In the meantime, they have been leasing it to Sonoma Applied Villages for safe parking for RVs 24/7. Safe parking, which is currently operating under a temporary use permit. It could go through December of 2024. However, their lease with St. Vincent de Paul is up before then, because St. Vincent de Paul has applied with the city as a co-applicant for state project home key funds for this project. We don't yet know the result of that, but they are moving forward and hope to hear soon, forward at the design in hopes of hearing soon on that grant. They're also applying for some other grant funding as well for the project. Initially, they had looked at doing a larger project, but given the funding available through Project Homekey and others, they do need to limit it to the 22 units, which, as John noted, is within the density allowed, and the one-story design, just as part of keeping costs down. So that's the design that you're looking at today. We did share with them the 2016 design and the general site plan with the building up at the front and parking behind and access along the south side are consistent with the prior site plan that was reviewed by the DRB. As John noted, there's likely a couple of different site modifications just in relationship to the trees and adjoining trees on the property to the southeast. But in general, the parking behind, as the city's design guidelines currently note, very different from the structure of the other development along the street, but the direction the city is trying to head with those things. John and I did meet with the applicant last week and talked with them a little bit about wanting to make sure the street presence for the project was differentiated and that elevation was differentiated from the other elevations. I think Lisa will talk a little bit today, but that is the general background of where things are with the site, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you, John. Any questions from the board for our staff?
Yeah, I just have one more question regarding the trees.
Mhm.
So the trees on the property line, the south property line, are those also heritage trees? Would they,
On the adjoining property?
you said that there were property line trees on the south that could be
Yeah.
impacted.
Yes, I believe all of them are some species of oak on that side.
And then to qualify for the heritage, they have to be a certain
10
diameter?
inches. Yeah.
And so would you guess 1, 2, 5, a lot, not many?
I would say at least the two that are on the site would qualify for it. I would have to double check the
So
additional
those
ones.
in the
but-
back corner?
Yeah.
But what about on the property line?
Oh, on the front property line?
Yeah, you were saying on the south property line.
The southeast property line, the
Yeah.
corner, that whole corner over there, where the two on-site ones are, there's
Right.
additional off-site.
Okay. So right now, we don't really have a record of how many of these would be
Correct.
heritage trees.
Correct. They haven't done a full arborist report
Okay.
yet this is just the preliminary stages, but it would be part of their full design review
Right.
package.
Okay, thanks.
Lynn, any questions for our staff?
Your staff report brought up the fact that nearly the entire lot is paved or become waterproof one way or another. And I think that's a really good point. I just wonder, how do you solve that problem?
So from my understanding, I don't believe the entire site is fully paved. Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's enough for the RVs to be there temporary. It's not full, it's gravel.
Yeah,
Right.
correct. It is gravel, but it's fairly compacted. There is a little bit of strip at the rear property line. I believe this design that Lisa has done that's being shown today actually would increase that back landscape area. And then obviously, what they are looking at, as they describe the project, includes a courtyard in the middle of the site that would also have landscape. So, the site as it is gravel, but before that it was also gravel and it's fairly compact. But this project would be subject to the city's low impact design in terms of drainage and stormwater. And Lynn, was that your question of how to deal with the stormwater on on a site that's basically 100% impervious currently?
I was really thinking about, it looks like maybe 85% of the project is roofed over or concrete or pavement. And that is a fairly high number. I was just wondering, before we ask someone to make the road more porous, I don't know if that's practical or not. I'm just kind of seeking information there.
Sure. So usually, I mean, there are some things you can do with asphalt. It is very difficult to maintain. The concrete, there are other strategies. Impervious concrete, again, it also does need to be maintained. If it gets blocked up with sand and things like that, it becomes less porous. The city does not have, especially for urban sites, urban being in the commercial zone like this is, does have open space requirements per unit, which actually I think you can see on the image that's being shown here. For the 22 units, it's 50 square feet per unit for this type of housing. So you can see what they're providing. Total would be for 22 units is 1,100 square feet, and they're providing 4,500 square feet of usable open space. And so that also does not include the areas that are sort of the planting strip at the edges. We don't allow those to be counted towards open space. But, there are more commercial sites and shading parking lots and dealing with drainage are in terms of the low impact design, so that we're not producing more. And if we can design things in a way that they actually have bioswales or things that will actually help with stormwater drainage is what the city looks to have.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for staff? Do you know, I can't remember, is there a sidewalk on the site that works, or this will be part of the upgrade of the site as kind of sidewalk improvements?
There is currently a sidewalk across the site, but yes, most likely it would need to be replaced as part of the site improvements.
Yeah.
And then the driveway would need to be, when that's redone, would need to be ADA in terms of the lips and thresholds.
Right. Okay, thank you.
So regarding that sidewalk, you're talking about the existing street front sidewalk.
Mhm.
How wide is that sidewalk? Ish.
I
Minimal.
believe it's either 5 or 6 feet. Yeah,
Okay.
it does meet the city standards.
Okay, but it's just not shown on here. So,
Right.
so you probably have the road 5 feet to the, I don't know if this is supposed to be a property line, what this square is.
Oh, the site plan? That's probably
Is that-
that's
is that-
probably the
yeah.
property line.
So you have 5 feet plus 20 feet and then building. And then I can't remember, is there street parking in that
There
location?
is, yes.
There is.
Yeah.
Here's a street.
There we
view
go.
right there.
Thanks, Lauren.
Excuse me. Yeah, we're just looking at a street view, and it looks, fairly standard. You can park out front. It's a probably 5 foot wide sidewalk, and then lots of pavement currently.
Right. So here is the actual, just for those who are,
Yeah.
Thank you.
this is the actual site. And so you can kind of see there's the property line here, I think, is off a little bit. It's a little bit to the south. So it actually, like we said, there's property line trees on that south border right here. Sorry, I can't get my cursor. Adjacent to this property are actually on this lower property. So those trees in between the two are actually on, and that on this property, and the property line is actually a little bit further up than it looks like on the lines on our GIS mapping.
You can sort of
And
see
then the
from
other
that-
side,
You can
sorry,
see,
go ahead.
you can see from that image, the sort of density of trees in that corner.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay.
Another question.
Yeah, go for it, Lynn.
Staff report said there is access to Hurlbut, but this site plan doesn't show anything. Where is that access?
I don't think so.
You mentioned county
There is
property.
no access to
No.
Hurlbut.
Yeah, that might be a mistake in the staff report, but there's no site, vehicle access from Hurlbut because it's,
Well, there's no pedestrian either. There's an adjacent property
Is
that,
there a pedestrian
Fronts on
access?
no.
Okay. Any other questions for staff at this point? Let's go ahead then and have a presentation from our applicant. Could you introduce yourself first, please? Thank you.
And what my Brenda built affordable housing to do affordable housing. And I found actually Christine's presentation interesting because we went from a two-story to one-story here in order to get.
Really affordable. You can be very affordable as multi-story, but it has to be pretty big. And if I don't have enough units to spread elevators and stairs and the other structural requirements of a two-story building across those units, then I'm going to not be able to afford it. So to get these 22 units, going to sort of very sort of classic California bungalow courtyard is what we felt like we could really succeed in doing. So the units are all, as you could see on the site plan, organized around a courtyard. So they all enter from that courtyard. And when the question about how do we reinforce the street comes up, that's a very valid question because it doesn't have a front door. The units don't have a front door on the street, but the courtyard could. So what you see us developing in the renderings is basically a front door for the entire cluster of apartments. So you would be able to, pedestrians could come from the street, walking down the sidewalk, come in, they would access the inside of the courtyard, and then they would be able to access units from there. So that was what made sense to us in terms of increasing its presence on the street, was making it meaningful to the experience of people living here. So I do have a little model that shows more of how the, well, I think I need to ask to share my screen. Okay. So here we are. So if you're coming down the street, you'll see what we're starting to develop a little seating area and a little trellis at the entrance. And I think from St. Vincent de Paul's point of view, they don't want to have a lot of on-site management, on-site, non-housing related space here. So really is a matter of coming into the courtyard and then, they're right at this outdoor space. You could have directory and so on, but, going in and seeing people. So we felt that the courtyard could be very much planted and that really we would just have a sidewalk around the outside of it. And then we would provide a shade structure as a gathering space. So that is basically that. And I can answer any questions anybody's got.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Any questions for our applicant?
Would you like to go first, Lynn, or shall I?
I can go.
Okay.
So is there any storage area on this property?
So if you look at the parking lot, so what we did is we did do a fenced enclosure for bicycles. And there certainly is space back there for anything, something else that was outside. Right now, the buildings are entirely repetitive and the units use, there's a storage space inside the unit, but there's no like garage space.
Mhm. So you're saying there's fenced in bicycle storage, there's garbage and recycling, and then there's sort of a space in between. Is that also garbage and recycling, or that's more storage?
That's to be determined. That could be storage. Yes.
Okay. Are they on a common meter for this location as far as utilities go, or do they all have separate meters?
That's a good question. So we are showing a solar array for the whole project and thinking that solar array could at the very least power all the site lighting if there is any. I mean, it doesn't have to be substantial. And vehicle chargers and bicycle chargers. And it would be probably more cost effective to have some kind of house meter.
Yeah, Lisa, I can answer that question. So this is rental housing, so it would have a single utility connections, and utilities would be part of the rent.
Okay. Otherwise, you'd have to have a very large dedicated space for all your meters.
Right. Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, you would. 22 meters is a lot of space.
Okay. We have a discrepancy between the pictorial drawings that you have and the drawings you showed up here across the front of the property. As far as the sidewalk goes, you have a secondary sidewalk up close to the building in the pictorial.
Yeah, I think we don't have a survey, and so we were working off of Google Maps also. And so I think, our feeling is that the more that we could consolidate the planting and have the planting be a buffer between, because those are unit windows, so between anybody walking on the sidewalk and the front of the building. So I'd like to see the planting be as wide as possible.
You'd like to see the planted area
Yes.
as wide as possible?
Yes.
Okay, good. Do you have security on this property like you do now?
So there are a couple of options, and we haven't discussed it yet. There's something we'll go over with the owner, but a courtyard's really nice in the sense that I did put all the entrances inside, all the unit entrances, so we could easily put gates where the paths enter the courtyard, and secure all the units that way without having to have an appearance of solid fencing. Now, we do show solid fencing on all the interior property lines, but we don't have a solid fence behind the sidewalk.
Well, is
And
security,
Just operationally, the way this works, it is called permanent supportive housing. And so there would be 22, sorry, of the 22 units, 21 would be rented to lower income folks, and 1 unit would be a live-in resident manager. So they would provide general supervision. And then on a regular basis, there would also be case managers that come to the site. And that is actually very much similar in how Park Village works. And so that, they don't have like security guards, just like most residential projects in town don't have security guards. But they do have a resident manager who's there 24, who lives there.
okay. You pointed out that entry going into the units from the city sidewalk, and it appears proportionally very narrow. It looked like maybe 4 feet?
I think it was more like 6, but we can certainly adjust that.
Yeah.
We are a little bit in progress here. And so, I think that's a good point.
So,
I was actually really happy because I think that unit that's right there is actually a really good manager unit.
and let's see, your site plan that I have at least doesn't identify what is outside the perimeter of benches that's in the courtyard. Is that going to be grass as well as grass inside?
We would like to see that to be more drought-friendly planting that isn't sort of usable because in a sense, what we really like to do is the courtyard wants to be a place where the community gets together, but we also, just like in the front, there's a little bit of concern about privacy. I'd like to have planting next to the windows, next to the actual unit entrances that gives a little bit of a buffer.
Mm-hmm.
So we focus on the inside for where the community gets together, but everybody gets a little front garden.
So, okay, that's it for me for now.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Christine?
Yeah. So who is your target for these units?
Carrie, who's my target?
So this is low income housing.
Well, the units are really small. Are you anticipating families in these units?
Oh,
or-
sorry.
No,
So
no.
individuals. Yeah, individuals.
Individuals.
So probably most likely one person per unit.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And then on your elevation, on your colorful elevation, you show this kind of trellis on the front, but it doesn't seem to go anywhere. It looks like it just goes up to the building and ends.
Oh, yeah, I think.
So it seems like it would just be a nice thing for people walking up the street to use, but not really much use for anything else.
No, I think we intend to develop that entrance
So that would go,
into the courtyard.
it would stagger past that, what you're going to call the manager's unit. It would go through there.
No, we have the circulation space. I'm just saying that as we develop that circulation space.
No, but I'm talking about in the front, on the street.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
There's a trellis.
I think it's, so you, it's
Well, this is all the way over,
brackets
this is all the way over here. But maybe it's all the way over here? Like this, is this,
Could the staff put a site plan up on the screen, maybe we can reference? If that's possible.
you think
It's
maybe?
trying to bracket that
be
entry.
here?
Yeah, that's something like that. That was my sense. Took me a while to get it figured out, but you can see that's the passageway. So it's maybe it starts at the left side of the passageway.
Right, I'm trying to understand what that, right now, it kind of, to me, it doesn't really have a location on the building anywhere. So if it doesn't go into the building, then it's just sitting on the front of the building, and then it just becomes sort of it becomes a parklet.
No, where it sits in the front of the building is where that entrance is into the courtyard.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what puts it there, is that's where if you were not coming by car, that's where you would come and as a pedestrian.
Or if you're visiting
Or
someone
if you're
here,
visiting
you park
somebody,
on the
yeah,
street and that's
yes,
where you'd go
right.
into the courtyard.
Yeah.
That's marking the entrance to the courtyard, right?
And can you describe what your thinking is with this clock tower thing? She laughs.
Yeah, well, it's time for affordable housing. I think that we felt that, I guess we got in our conversations with planners, we were asked to get something that had a little bit more presence on the street. And the way that we're going to afford this is it's a very rigorous building. So kind of the only thing I can do is kind of put something on it. Rather than try to come up with different volumes and so on, because this building is really what it is. And so our thinking was that if we had a kind of a marker that told people as they're coming down the street, this is where I'm going, that was more vertical, that would be a good thing. It was a marker for the entrance. We did a clock on an elementary school. It was very popular as a sort of monument to the analog world. And so that's part of our, sort of affection for it.
So when you say it's a rigorous building, what exactly do you mean by that?
It's got the same trusses, 2 feet on center all the way through, back-to-back, identical kitchens, identical bathrooms. The plumbing is packed together. The modules are equal, so that when this is a stick-built building in the sense that it's built on site, but it uses tricks of sort of being able to get the tradesmen just out there and blow and go through this building. And that's how we feel like we can make this budget work.
What kind of budget do you have? A kind of a square footage idea that you're anticipating for this?
We were asked for something in the 300,000s per unit, and the average for the Bay Area is 750,000. So that kind of means that we're going to work really hard to make sure that we've made something very simple for the contractor to do.
So you're
I
looking
think-
at 300,000 per unit for this?
In the 300,000s.
What
yes.
is our, I don't have my,
Well, your average is twice that.
what is your,
For a similar size.
what is
unit,
your,
you're
what is
saying.
your square footage per unit?
I think you've got that on, John, do you have that on?
432.
Yeah.
432. Does this phone have a, I'm trying to do the math.
That's per square foot number.
Yeah.
We are talking to a young company that's got a kitchen that, basically it's called Kit Switch. It's a kitchen that just goes in. And again, if I've
nothing.
got 22 of them, then I can plug that thing in.
What was that square footage number again?
432.
432.
This is just something I'm personally studying.
Yeah.
Why? Why does it cost so much per square foot to build in California when you could build the same unit for a third the price in other areas of the country? And I'm not asking you to answer that question. This is just an interesting question because that's part of our problem that we're having and what's driving that. But you come up to $694 per square foot.
Thank God. It should be 1,000.
Well, I mean, that's kind of, I'm not, this is just
Yeah.
a totally different aside, but that's pathetic. And you're going to be going in there with really low end materials.
We will not be going in there with, we will use hardy siding, but we're not using, Texture 111. We're not using really crummy stuff. We're going to be fairly heavily insulated. I think that the building, we're intending to have it be solar, to be all electric, and to use that solar power to bring down the.
But you must do, right? You have to have solar.
We have to be solar ready and so on, but we really are trying to maximize. So there's places where we're really trying to make sure that the quality of windows, for rental units, you have to have a decent window. And there are things like, so I wouldn't say that we are assuming that everything here is sort of, builder special. I think what we are hoping to do is, by coming up with a very, simple, repetitive plan for all the units, that we're able to simplify the construction process.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're doing. And this isn't meant to be any criticism
Yeah.
to you. You must understand. Yeah, like I
Yeah,
could see
mean,
like
why
one
is
of the
it so,
costs.
why is it so expensive? It's
Well, it's a question that we need to answer as a society, but I'm just,
yeah.
that's why I'm trying to understand. And so I see what you're trying to do here, because I want to make some suggestions, but I understand now that you're trying to, for example, with your construction process, you're trying to minimize the labor, which is a big cost, by having it be repetitive and
Right.
going through. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and I honestly believe that that's how we're going to be able to do it. I think another thing that we're doing is that we can put, I think, additional investment into the landscape and come up with a lot of pleasure for people in terms of the environment that they're in. And in a way, more than we would if we had a room like this that was used once a week for 3 hours.
As a commons room, you're saying? Or something.
Yeah.
Yes, but if our landscape architect was in attendance, he would tell you that those plants don't come for free.
Oh, no, they don't.
That's to
No,
get
they don't come for free. I'm saying that we need that space. We want to make sure that we have an ability to invest in it and make sure that we can make it hardy and welcoming. So those are things that we'd like to see, happen. But I would be silly not to say that a major thing we've been thinking about is just how to make this thing affordable.
Right. Okay, let's, we're still in the questions for applicant phase.
I have one more question.
Okay.
So for this type of application, if you had 2 stories, let's just say hypothetically, would you have to have an elevator, or can you legally just do stairs?
No, we would have an elevator.
But do you have to?
Yes, you would need to, by building code.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what's driving that? Because it's
Multifamily ADA requirements.
It's an ADA requirement. We have enough units to kick off all that stuff.
So every unit has to be ADU? I'm just trying to understand.
Every unit has to be adaptable.
Every unit has to be adaptable.
Yeah, we don't have to put grab bars and stuff in every unit. And we can put cabinets under the sink in every, but if there's an ADA unit, you need to be able to remove those
Right.
and do the other improvements that would make it a truly ADA unit.
Mhm.
And, frankly, I think that when you start looking at who is targeted in single occupancy kinds of very low income housing, there's a lot of folks who need extra help.
Mhm. Any other questions, Christine?
No, thanks.
Lisa, could you just explain a little more of your architectural direction here? So you mentioned the California bungalow sort of as an inspiration, and then this clock tower is one thing, but could you just describe a little bit more how you're seeing that for the project?
Yeah, I mean, we do. We've done a lot of this I've had the opportunity to do a lot of public meetings with potential residents of our low income housing, and we're talking with some of them about what did they want to see in terms of imagery or in terms of architectural style, and I've gotten a very strong sort of endorsement for like people saying, well, we just want to live in San Francisco. We want to live in a house. We want to live in something that you recognize as being house-like, domestic.
Mhm.
And so in some respects, that's what the gable roof has also to do with being able to afford it, but we felt like it was a comfortable scale that is similar to houses and doesn't scream multifamily development at you.
Mhm.
And so that sort of comfortableness that, that people seem to seek, I think is something that, but we'd really like to be able to have, to develop as we take the building further.
Okay, thank you. You also have 3 options that were presented as part of the package. Those are just essentially different versions of that pergola structure.
Yeah, we started out with, whoa, what if we do something modern and crazy? What if we do something that's modern and not too crazy? What if we just take we have the canopies over the doors on the interior courtyard, and so we felt like this would be sort of the big version of that. Like, here we are, welcome to our group, just like the canopy over the door on the inside of the courtyard is welcome to my unit. So we wanted to make that progression make some sense.
Mhm.
So there is a sort of relationship in the idea between what calls out individual units and what calls out the group.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right. I think any other questions for the applicant, or we can move on to any questions from the public. Thanks, Lisa. We'll see if there's any questions from the public, and then we can have our whole board discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
So for the few folks that we do have in Zoom, if you would like to make a public comment, can you please raise your hand or get my attention, and I will unmute you. Okay. And you will have 3 minutes for public comment. So Max, you can go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate being able to see this on Zoom. And in the pergola picture, it looked like maybe solar panels on the north side, which will be in the shade. I've seen that happen in other developments where they're forced to do solar and they put up solar panels where they're not effective. And just one other side note, I was listening to Marketplace on NPR show as I was listening to you, and they closed by saying that there are 6% fewer households, now getting government assistance than in 2004 for low-income housing. So in general, I just support the development, and I look forward to seeing how it all shakes out. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
So we know Lisa Gelfand over there probably doesn't have any comments, but Ramon Juarez. Okay. No other public comment then?
We did, I did receive a phone call from a member of the public adjacent or close to the project, just inquiring about potential traffic concerns moving forward with the project with 22 additional units there, and just as a kind of concern about that. So
would the applicant be required to do a traffic study as part of the project?
I don't believe so, but I'll let Carrie
Yes.
confirm or deny that
They
one.
they would not need to. There was a traffic study done in 2016 that analyzed the traffic counts for 11 units plus the retail that was assessed and within the parameters. The 22 units that are being proposed, as well as the 23 van units that are on the site currently, all are well below that. So there would be no change to that. We wouldn't anticipate traffic changes beyond what is currently at the site.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And the traffic study we have on file, it tells you that it still is well below that. That also analyzed the actual intersection, the safety of the actual drive, which is not changing. And additionally, the state has adopted vehicle mile traveled metrics for any CEQA analysis, and this would screen out as an affordable housing project as being exempt from that.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, let's bring it back to the board for discussion. So again, we're not, there's nothing to decide on today. We're just giving feedback to the applicant to guide her and her team moving forward. Len, would you like to go ahead with any comments?
Well, comments that I have. I think the project looks eloquently simple. It looks comfortable. I think it, as you stated, it fits the neighborhood really well. And however, I have a few comments that I'd like to see changes perhaps. But, the front and side that are easily visible from the street look dark and blank. And it seems that some basic trim, maybe a few color changes in there would get away from the starkness that you would see if you removed all that foliage that's in the picture. And so I hope you find some way to just enhance the look of the front of the building and the sides that are readily available to traffic. I think the centerpiece, the clock, is a great addition. It makes it kind of unique, makes it interesting, but the particular design of it, I think, could be improved. It's kind of maybe a modern design, little hard, straight edge kind of thing. It's not your classic clock tower, but you have a very classic structure here. And I think there's just a little bit of disharmony here. And I think as a centerpiece, as an art piece, it just needs more work. And but all in all, I'm glad to see that kind of feature that gives you some character there. Something I think is needed is a good name for the project. You've got the Commons. Well, there's several other locations in this town that are already called Commons, and it's just kind of a common name, and that find something kind of upbeat, exciting, thrilling, picturesque that gives you a nicer identity than common. Let me think here. Just a little thing about the landscaping on the, I guess it would be the north side of the structure, at least on the left side as you face it. You've got a very straight building, a very straight sidewalk, and a very straight strip of land there for landscaping. I think, boy, you've got a 10-foot space there. I just perhaps put some grace into that sidewalk instead of making it look so drawing board straight, and make it big planters, little planters, soft curves in the walkway, something like that won't cost you any more, but it will make it more personable, more interesting. Anyway, I have a few more, but I'll let it rest for the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Christine?
Well, I have a couple, I mean, I'm really sympathetic about the cost issue. But I think the project has some really unfortunate aspects to it, and I don't know how you undo it. I'm struggling, but I'm seeing this for the first time. First of all, we have this again with the ideology about having the parking tucked in the back because we don't want to see cars. But this road I forget the number. I've seen it in the traffic study. It has an astronomical number of vehicles that go down the road. So why are we pretending we're not going to see cars? And the issue here for the units up against the road is it's just going to be grinding. I mean, I know people that live on that road, and it's just the traffic noise is just grinding. At 5 a.m., you got all the gravel trucks coming from the gravel place in Forestville, and it seems like if you could move it back and move the parking forward, you would at least give some relief. Now that said, because also you've got like the garbage, so you're going to have garbage pickup unless they're going to be dragging the garbage cans up to the road. You got to get some kind of garbage truck going down there and making the turn and backing up. And if you had something like that closer to the front, that would be easier. And then we're talking about people being disabled basically coming in there. So what's with all the bicycles? Maybe we could use some of that space better there. And I'm just trying to figure out how to give this whole project some more green space. And, I would love to stack some of these units, but I understand the issue. And this ADA accessible, I just ran into this on a plan check on a house. They're requiring it now for your single family residence. So I asked the rhetorical question, why is the cost so high in California? Well, we can start to understand some of the answers to that question. But if there's some way to reorganize and move the buildings back, give the people some relief from that traffic. I mean, the cars are going to be going by in amongst those chairs somewhere, big gravel trucks. That's how close that is. And I think you could solve a lot of problems by moving the building back and bringing the vehicles forward. Additionally, if we are having one person per unit, because I'm looking ahead to trying to address these trees and stuff, and we're just basically what we're doing everywhere is everything's asphalt and concrete. The roofs are asphalt composition, so when you're coming down, you're creating a heat sink. We're doing this everywhere, and if we can at least try to preserve some of our nature. So in order to do that, I think we're going to have to eliminate some of the parking spaces. But if we have one person per unit and street parking, I would, recommend going down to the one space per unit. That's 22 spaces from 28 to try to alleviate that corner. And you've got a lot of space taken up with this courtyard. Maybe there's a way to reorganize it. It's interesting to me because this is very old European in its setup. They have the houses on the front, and then you would be surprised what's inside those courtyards when you look like you're looking at blocks of houses. But the issue with that, again and again, when I've been in there, is airflow. It becomes a dead airspace. So if you're going to do this, it might be interesting to try to get, I don't know how you do this with it. I'm totally sympathetic to what you've done, but how to get like a wider space for air to pass through. I'm with Lynn. It looks like 4 feet. It might be 6 feet. And two of the traffic walkways are going out into the drive area. That's a little tough. I mean, I'm just looking at this for the first time, so I can't give you really, good ideas, but I feel like there's another way to manage the site, given these considerations with, and make it's softer, less abusive from the traffic, more area to possibly plant, preserve the trees, and just make it for the tenants a nicer environment. And I have to say that I'm a proponent in architecture where you can have really simple buildings, but if you have really good space, light, and airflow, you can have a really nice space for somebody to be in. Like, I'm sorry, Lynn, but I would eliminate that clock thing completely. That's a waste of money. Maybe have some trellising that orient the passageway into the center. And widen it up so you get some airflow. Like the nicest places I ever go into have natural airflow through them. Then you have a nice space inside your building. I mean, these are things to consider. Like I don't have any problem with just a square, bland-looking building. I don't need to emphasize that if I can get nice light and air and move the people away. I promise you, being this close to the road is going to be grinding for the tenants with that traffic, especially the gravel trucks in the morning. So anyway, see, these are just some thoughts you might want to consider. Like I said, I totally appreciate what you're doing here and understand the cost issue. It's terrible. And I have absolute sympathy for people trying to find a place, when you're on the low income and you're just sort of stuck on that level and you have nowhere to go. I mean, let's get them in housing like this that at least they're not on the street. So these are just suggestions to you. But I am, when you come back, if I'm still here, I am going to insist that we preserve these trees. So
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the trees, that's been brought to our attention, those car parking spaces
yeah,
will be gone. Yeah. And again, the parking, I'm open to 22 spaces would be fine. So.
I mean, if you think about this, Lisa, these people have it tough enough, and if they could have some access to some sort of natural environment and nature and air, like I can guarantee that tree corner back there is a beautiful little micro environment. I mean, it's uplifting,
Mhm.
and it's really helpful for everybody.
Thank you, Christine. I have a few more comments to add, but I would like to just appreciate the work you do in the world of housing and bring to the Bay Area. It's great, and thank you for participating up here in Sebastopol and trying to make this work.
Here.
I think I understand I think the organizational courtyard idea makes a lot of sense when you have to, you have limited budget and a lot of small units. So I think that actually is a very strong move. I think the fact that it's only one story probably won't, I know the buildings you're talking about for sure in Europe, and as a one story, you probably won't feel that kind of trapped airflow feeling just because it's not that tall. But I think the big struggle here is that it's actually an urban streetscape kind of site, and that how do you put the California bungalow onto that? So to me, I know these are early stages of design, but it looks more barracks-like than bungalow in a way, just because they're put together. So I think to Lynn's point, like there's more detail that would be really helpful, any kind of porch-like thing almost, or trim, etc. Maybe different colors that would give it more character. I think that going from one gable orientation to the next around the courtyard doesn't feel very cohesive. It feels kind of stuck together. So it feels to me like either these should separate into little bungalows or really be much more connected as a whole roof line in a way. Those kind of transitions feel awkward to me. But and I think, I was just in Sea Ranch for a couple days, and I like the clock tower in its form. I think the clock itself is I have memories of public clocks that just don't work. Like I look up at the clock and it's not telling the right time. So I agree with Lynn, like something else could go there. I think though the form at least gives some marker and some presence to the entry.
Sebastopol sign.
What's that?
Sebastopol
clock.
There's your seal.
Oh, put that up there, sure. Yeah, so I think I appreciate that you're trying to give some character or some direction as to where the entry is and to the building frontage, but it feels like it's between the forms and the various shrubberies and trees. It feels like it's receding, like the building is actually trying to recede. To me, I feel the opposite of Christine in a way. It should be a very strong street frontage, street trees, still have enough of a front yard, so to speak, or landscaping, but this should be a 2 to 3 story building right there, and create an urban setting. It's in the general plan, when that got redone, this got characterized as one of the districts of Sebastopol, and there's certain buildings that are trying to step up to that. I think Kevin Kellogg's project that came before had some of that because it was taller. I think this site really demands a little higher density, but if the math doesn't work, the math doesn't work. Yeah, so I feel like there's a lot of good to it, but it feels like to me it needs a lot more stronger character in its architectural expression to hold this site and help hold this part of town as you enter from the north. So those are a few comments.
I wanted to add in there, I believe that I heard and read that the maximum density is 24 units on this project, and we've got 22, so we can't really.
Well, unless you blow out your zoning requirements.
But if you went higher with 24 units, you'd have more open space.
Oh,
and
oh,
green
Well, no,
space.
that's what I said. I would love that, but that's
No,
that's going to
it
kill their
That-
budget.
That really,
Yeah, I would
to me,
love to.
that's where
I
we
would love to
can't
have
do it.
something.
You can't do it because of the cost. you're
Right.
saying.
Yeah, I would love to have that and have more open space. But
Yeah.
But
I-
is the cost in the elevator, or like you're not doing,
Oh,
you're
it's the
doing
cost-
half the foundation if you're going up
Yeah,
2
but-
units?
sure, but that, you know, I'm assuming it's a shallow foundation, no big deal. That we're looking at a really different structure that can do earthquakes and everything else in
Mhm.
2 stories. In 1 story, it's very easy. So
Mhm.
throughout the building, you get changes that make 2-story buildings just, but the ADA thing and being able to put in a real ADA elevator and
Yeah.
the stairwells and the whole business.
That's a
it's-
lot,
It's a lot.
Mhm.
And I think then we just start getting into the typical cost per unit, which is a good 25% higher than,
Yeah,
what we're being asked to do. So
I get that, yeah.
I think, like I said, I think I'm really happy to, continue studying the actual street frontage. And, I thought, actually, there's, I think, a bank across the street that does a nice job. And so there's definitely some more development that we're going to do.
Yeah, that's great. I do appreciate your building sections and wall section and what you're trying to achieve with your budget. I mean, to have, rock wool insulation, stuff like that is great. Do you know a product called True Exterior? It's or known as Boral. So it's a greener version of a hardy siding.
Okay.
If it has fly ash in the makeup. So
Okay.
I've been looking at that more for our projects that
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, we try to be to me, indoor air is incredibly important. So we'll try to get a cabinet in there that doesn't have particle board, just a whole, there will be sort of materials that, they may not show that are where we really want to make sure that they're the right thing.
That's great.
And, again, the north is sort of diagonal, which is why
It
the
is.
solar panels are kind of where they are. And we think they're where they need to be, but
For the panels, you're
Yeah.
saying? Yeah. Hmm. Okay.
they're southwest, southeast.
Right.
But anyway, I think, just how, I could certainly see, especially if we lose some of these parking spaces, if we stagger the buildings around the courtyard a little bit more, might be able to get it to feel a little bit more free.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah.
think we'll stick with that approach to get this place to feel cohesive to the residents in terms of their community, that they all share that space.
Hmm. I think you mentioned sort of some of the tenants may be in need of, the accessibility concerns, but it's also could be younger people, and bicycles, I think, are key. Maybe you don't need that many, but we have bike paths right
That's
out
the-
there,
well,
right out
that's-
there.
That's the building code. The building code's got nuts on bicycle
Uh,
storage. But anyway,
Okay.
You will ride your bike.
yeah, well, you at least store your bike.
And you will
At
get
least
rid
you're
of your
storing
car.
your bike. Okay, well, I don't know, do you have any other, Len? You said you might have some other comments?
Yeah, just a few. One, I just want to add a little more weight to the fact that you've got that corner back there with a lot of large overhanging trees. And I would make that a private sitting area. The other two sitting areas, the center of your courtyard and the front of that building, are not private at all, but they're probably not going to be used very much because of that. You're kind of out in front of everybody. And it's nice to have kind of an outside pretty place where you can read a book or eat your lunch or just kind of talk to someone and visit. And so, I want to just add more weight to the idea of saving the trees and creating a pleasant private area that others have expressed.
Well, I think we're going to eliminate some parking over here. Create a little park area in that corner to save the tree. And then it gives, because we could eliminate, they're willing to eliminate these parking spots.
And then I think the point of where the garbage pickup is a big one. And Christine mentioned it, like not having the garbage trucks come all the way to the back of the site, but creating a little structure that sits in the corner or something up front, if that works for the whole site, and would be good. And then the staff did ask us to also talk about HVAC equipment location. I don't know if, Lisa, you've looked at that yet, or?
We haven't looked at it, but I think that, again, we could do these with very simple through the wall kinds of units, or there's an attic that comes with this kind of, it comes with this kind of gable, but.
Oh, you're going to have to have a heat pump unit, right?
Yeah.
So where's the heat pump unit going to be?
Well, the outside piece, there's a number of places that they make noise, those guys. So I think they're going to go somewhere near the parking lot on the back between the buildings.
Well, they have to get over though, because if you have a heat pump unit for building C, you're not going to have the unit. The heat pump's not going to be outside building A.
I know.
See, I'm suggesting
secretly use the tower.
in my kind of
tower,
imaginings,
yeah.
you over here, I'm coming up with like a little area here that becomes where you can get your garbage and where you can, so it has easy access, and your heat pump units moving the building back, creating at least some relief, maybe moving this back a little bit, then having your parking here. I'm just throwing out ideas. And get some nature back in here. See, we're suffering from lack of nature. I keep bringing this up, but this little back park area with the trees will have nature. This courtyard is not going to be, inviting a whole bunch of nature in there because it's too man influenced. I'm not saying that birds won't go in that tree, but that back area, I'm like with Lynn, that is an opportunity in that back where those trees are. That's why I'm trying to reform these and push these around for better use. I don't see you're going to get with this thing here, you're not going to get the garbage truck coming down. I mean, and that's just going to add, this is the thing. I know everybody likes the form, but this is like car torture to me. You got the trucks going up here. You got the cars coming back here. Like you're surrounded by vehicles doing all kinds of stuff.
Well, one thing that's nice about this unit is that it does have windows front and back. So we can take the ones that are on the street and have a non-operable window on the front and make it really acoustic.
Well, it is an issue. I mean, just, if you just went out there and hung out, you would see it. And to have no escape from that. I'm just, because it goes all the time. Right. And everybody that lives on the street that talks to me goes, oh my God, the gravel trucks start at 5 a.m. They come pounding by there, and it is what it is.
It is, but
we need the Sebastopol bypass.
Isn't a courtyard interior courtyard space, well designed, could be a refuge from that. If it's a nice, peaceful, tranquil, planted space, it could be
As long as you're outside in the courtyard,
outside in the courtyard. That's what
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
but you're not in your unit sleeping in bed.
Well, you're living on a highway. I mean, you're not gonna
It's
avoid.
also a very small unit.
Yeah, but I think you just mentioned, or you started to, the sort of slipping of
Yeah.
these units. I think that would start to take it out of, I called it barracks,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah,
start to do some of that, even separate, a little more separation could create a sense of character and variety. So you're taking the courtyard form and giving it some other life that could be very unique
No,
to
I
this site.
definitely think that, I mean, one of the, I resist taking a hip roof and linking the buildings, because this is just going to be more issue, but unlinking them in a
Mhm.
way and
Well, yeah, and I think it's
sliding them past each other, I think we could get something
we
quite
had a
Mhm.
project
a
for
little bit more lively.
We had a
Mhm.
project for Habitat for Humanity, which they came in with a very kind of trying to call it bungalow. This isn't bungalow. This is just a rectangle. But we suggested to them to try to play with some different forms, and it came out. It was awesome. I mean, they came out. They didn't stay stuck in this, and it was still boxes. It's a low income project, definitely Habitat for Humanity, but they came up with some unique forms, shed roofs, and without really driving the cost. The other thing is, I think you really do need to think about those heat pump units, because like you don't have anywhere really to put a heat pump unit on building C and building D. And you're going to have at least one, I imagine multiple of those heat pumps.
Yeah,
For-
I actually think we might look at well, there's the attic space above the each one of these has a kitchen bath core,
Mhm.
and that's where all of the, exhaust fans are and all that kind of stuff. And so whether I could even make a well or something.
Well, a heat pump unit though has to be outside,
Was
right?
she
Yeah.
saying like a
I'm saying it's
well
like
in
Oh.
the
the roof?
suitcase bit goes outside.
In the roof. Well, okay, so then you could maybe, okay, I'm getting a little bit crazy here, but you could maybe play with some different
Yeah,
forms.
yeah.
Like, don't stick with that form, because your manufactured trusses are going to be your manufactured trusses, right? So you could maybe come with, of course, if you're going to introduce a well, you've got another truss type, and there goes, cost.
Mhm.
But
Right, and I honestly, I am really trying to do this. It's like, if you guys get me another grant, all right. But I think within the approach of just trying to get some really, very livable, nice units that I think for instance, if I can take those things are 2 feet on center, the truss.
Yeah.
And, could I get an area where I've got 4 feet? Then I've got room to change the roof line to get the suitcase part of the heat pump on the outside, and to use my attic space in the truss to distribute anything. So, I mean, there's a few things like that as we develop it, may show and may start to give you a little bit more sense of it being, of there being sort of grain.
Mhm.
yeah, because the other question that I have, if we're going to go down this road, is the tankless water heater. I mean, my understanding is you can only do that now if it's all electric, or
Because
everybody's going with
be all electric.
everybody's
Yeah.
going with the heat pump water heaters now.
Yeah, because electric tankless water heaters have been typically a penalty in the Title 24 count.
Yeah, they have.
But can you even use them now? Can you still use them?
I don't
There's
think
actually
so.
I don't know, just if you want to look them up, there's a company called Harvest in Berkeley that is taking the heat pump, basically the heat pump and air handler and the heat pump water heater, and
combining them.
and using the water in the water heater as part of the storage. So now they use controls, and so like all computers, it's not, if the devil's not in buying it and plugging it in, it's like what happens a year later.
Yeah.
So I think, we will try to make sure that's why I'm saying the units do have ventilation front to back, all of them. And so I
great.
think that what we want to do with ones that face the street for sure is make sure that those windows can be, just closed, not left closed. And I think we used to do a ton with natural ventilation that I now try to make sure that my system can operate on wildfire days and have a filter that because we have to face the facts that we will have bad air days. And so, depending too much on only natural ventilation can be a problem. So I need to have some air handler that's.
Well, I think you're required too, aren't you?
No,
And
I
so-
could do it with radiant heat, but and natural ventilation. But I think that, like I said, I think we are looking at another 20 years of bad air.
So what are you doing? So with these common walls here, so typically like in a condo kind of a thing, you have to run the fire separation all the way up to the roof?
We're so small that we for sure we don't have to fire separate. We do have to acoustically separate, but we don't have a ton of firewalls here.
All right. Any other?
I have just a few little things. It seems like you really need an outbuilding for storage of, there's going to be common tools, things that get lost, signage that gets put away that's for some special occasion. You got to have a complex this big has to have a storeroom. And the last little thing from me, at least, is I believe they make clocks that are self-setting and keep time, because that is a very good point that, a clock that doesn't tell time is kind of an eyesore.
Ouch.
But,
Well, we could do a sundial.
pardon me?
Sundial.
Sundial.
I like the idea if you're going to go with that tower, which I'm kind of rolling my eyes, but it is just do some unique thing up there, something unique. Does it,
I was going to talk to Jack, actually, the owner, whether there's a public art program we could do, or
some nice
I'm on
piece
the
of
public art committee.
I see this. I absolutely see this as a public art opportunity.
Okay, well, I like, for example, I always like what they did on the Boblet building where they have those birds flying.
The Starling.
Yeah. So, that seems like that would be an opportunity to do something like that and not mess with the
Right.
clock.
No,
Yeah.
I
We
would
got
think
clocks
so.
everywhere you turn around. You got a stinking clock. You got it on your phone. You got it on every appliance. You got it, like, enough of the clocks.
Yeah, like the Sea Ranch Lodge, or I was just there. It has the amazing ram's horn
Yeah.
graphic,
Yeah.
right? And it's so striking when you drive up. You know where you are, right? Like,
Well, and I think that we would like it to, say that, have it be a sense of pride, and also, but also like it's. I think that we also try to make sure that what we think is interesting and lively and so on is also how residents will feel that if they feel like they just want to come home and they don't want to be a big point of attention, then it's I find that a little bit of a dance just between what it's different if I'm designing a school and I'm like, public building, I want to say this is how important this is to our community, and homes where you want to be part of your community.
that's a really good point. It's a public-private question, and you're here, like I said, you're on a highway. It's a very public home.
Yeah.
So I think there's an obligation to the residents, to what Christine was saying, what we've been saying, to be private and comfortable, right? But then there's also an obligation, I think, from the architect and to the city to make something that's really has some power to it. In a way. It's a great challenge.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else for now?
There's no
Until next time?
There's no home left for the recluse.
Oh, well, here.
You have to be out there now. You got to be. The finger's pointing at you. But no, I totally agree with you, Lisa. I think that there is the consideration for the residents and having some privacy and not being the center of the universe.
Yeah.
And also, I just want to say before we finish, I really appreciate your work here and what you're trying to do. So I'm just throwing ideas
Yeah,
out
yeah,
at you,
yeah.
but
No,
that's
that's
how
great.
you come up finally with a design is you throw everything on the table and then you pick through it, right? So.
Yeah, I know. It's great to have the opportunity to just hear about it and talk about it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for coming up.
Yeah. All right.
All right, with that, I think we can adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Recording stopped.
This is a fun one.